Hello and welcome to another episode of the e-commerce coffee break podcast. Today we want to find out how you can improve your margins substantially by using customer data effectively. Now, data is coming from all sides in your business, but really going into it and finding out what works and then with that coming to a point where you actually can make more money, that is not that easy. So with me to talk about this topic, I have Omer Hazer. He's the general partner of Atlas Ventures and Studios at atlasventures.co. They are a complete e-commerce solutions architect, providing cutting-edge e-commerce solutions to ambitious brands globally. Previously to Atlas Ventures, Omer held senior roles in enterprise e-commerce, working with global brands such as Steel, Anytime Fitness, Timberland, Birkenstock, and ASICS. So we have a lot to cover. Let's welcome Omer to the show. Hi, Omer. How are you today?
Hi, Klaus. Good, good. Thanks for having me on board as well.
Omer, let's dive right into it. Data is a big topic. And as I said, it's coming from all apps that you're using. It's coming from the Shopify platform. It's coming from literally every direction. Lots of merchants have problems with really finding out what they can use. They're just overwhelmed with all the data. But it's so important to do the right steps by analyzing it to really increase your profit margins. What got you into this topic, and what do you see is the biggest issue that merchants have?
Yeah, great question. I think initially why we started looking into data more and more was we saw across the board, no matter the size of the business we're working with, from startups to mid-market to enterprise, data wasn't being utilized correctly and wasn't being utilized to its full extent. And that's where we decided, okay, there's actually a lot of opportunities here, not just from a purely paid acquisition agency or email agency, and look, how do we actually utilize data effectively for these clients? So that got us looking into it more and more. Previously, also in my previous role, did a lot of work in the data space, so it was really exciting, especially what you could do in it. So decided to continue that onwards. Um, with so I guess when it comes to data, like you said, you get that from all sorts of channels. You're getting that first party data from Shopify. You're getting it from Meta directly. You're getting it from Google Ads if you're running Google Ads. And obviously you can then analyze all of this in Google Analytics. We've seen some clients then pipe all of that into, well, now it's called Looker Studio, but it was Google Data Studio, as most people kind of remember it as. And there's real levels to how you can start to look at your data and aggregate it. We've really seen the rise of people using Triple Whale to analyze their paid acquisition and the effectiveness of that. Where we like to play is in the Klaviyo space. I think Klaviyo itself offers a lot of great data and segmentation that you can use, not from your data that are simply available in Klaviyo, but from people coming in from Shopify and being able to import CSVs from your Meta, from your Google, etc. So we've really started playing around with Klaviyo, and from there it took us into a whole kind of journey in terms of how you can manipulate that data and use it effectively.
Yeah, Klaviyo is probably by far the best tool for email marketing for Shopify. Shopify has invested in Klaviyo, so it's part of the Shopify family. But they were right there from the beginning when Shopify started. Klaviyo came shortly after, and they have a very close-knit connection to the system. But as you said, there is other data sources out there. How do you get all these other data sources into Klaviyo, and how do you build up the right segmentation with that?
Good question. So recently, and I think this is part of Klaviyo, but not just Klaviyo, but a lot of these Shopify ecosystem apps and businesses trying to expand and get market share, right? So you'll see businesses like Yotpo start to offer email automation now as well, or you start to see loyalty programs offering SMS automation and all these different things. So everyone's trying to gain market share. And I suppose Klaviyo's way of doing that is launching their CDP, their custom data platform solution. I believe this was earlier last year now in 2023, and there's been a game changer, I think, especially for smaller and mid-market brands wanting to use CDPs effectively. When we look at brands typically that would use CDPs. They typically sit at an enterprise level. A lot of CDPs are cumbersome, they're expensive, and e-commerce teams kind of dreaded integrating and implementing them. And I think what Klaviyo came out with is a super easy to use tool And so we are big fans of using Klaviyo's own CDP platform with the types of projects that we're doing, piping all sorts of data from all sorts of different areas. And to visualize this, because I think when we're talking about CDP, it can get lost in translation as to what it actually means and what you can use it for. So I'll give you a use case. For one of our clients, they're a sports team, right? And they've got obviously many different channels where they're receiving customer data. They've got their ticket sales through Ticketmaster. They have their POS systems where they're getting people coming in and buying, let's say, a hot dog when they're at a game, right? Or a drink. And they also have their merchandise store through Shopify. So you've got 3 different areas where that data is getting captured. But that data is fragmented. Some of that is sitting with Ticketmaster, some of that is sitting with Shopify, some of that is sitting with their POS systems, right? They're not actually utilizing it at all. So one project that we took with them is consolidating all of that into Klaviyo's own CDP, right? Integrating, which definitely wasn't a quick or easy project, but the value is immense here, right? Because you can start to get a full picture of, let's say, course going to a sports game. And while you're there, maybe before the game, you bought a singlet, right, of your favorite team. Then when you were there, during the break, you went in and got a hot dog and a can of Coke. Then from there, you finished the game, you left. And that was your first ever ticket, right? So first ever game as well. So now we've got this full profile on you of everything you've done throughout that journey. And moving forward, we can start to create segments, right, of people who have come to games, but they have never purchased anything at the concession stand. Or people who have bought merchandise before, but have never come to a game, right? And by creating these important segments, you can start to really target them effectively. You can pipe that, you can export that data out, you can put it into your Facebook ads, your meta ads, and use immediate retargeting there. You can create lookalike audiences of that through email, through Klaviyo. You can start to email people and push SMS campaigns during the games. And an example, again, a use case was, this team that wanted to talk about they wanted to advertise, let's say, 50% off on their concession stand stuff during halftime. But they weren't sure, well, if you're a vegetarian, you're not going to want to buy a hot dog or a burger, right? It's just not useful to send you a text on that offer. So all they did was just use that Klaviyo CDP data of that segment of people who have come to games before, who we know have bought meat products, right? And then that segment received an email, a text during the game saying, hey, 25% off, come and buy it. This way, now, could you have just blasted everyone that text? Yes. But would you have gotten worse UX because people go, well, this is not even useful for me, right? And similarly, upgraded seats to people who are coming to nearly every single one of your games, right? A surprise and delight where you can email them and say, we've seen that you've come to more than 10 of our games. So as a result, we'd like to reward you by upgrading your seats to courtside tickets, for example, right? And you're not eating into your margin because you can just give away your courtside tickets that didn't sell, right? And you can really start to do some really interesting things. And hopefully that use case and case study gave you a bit of an idea of why having that full picture, how you can actually start to utilize it, especially if you've got different channels to gather that information, POS, retail, online, etc.
Absolutely. I think you gave a really good example there because a lot of businesses have retail outlets, have online presence, and in the past we were always talking about segmentation and getting data, but it also was focused mainly off online. Now, with this example that you just gave now, it just gives the bigger picture. A lot of brick and mortar stores trying to go into online, and they have scattered data from other external systems. Now, I'm interested in finding out, you touched on these different systems. Is there any kind of API, or how do you source the data into Klaviyo? How does the implementation process work there?
Yeah, absolutely. So the API connections, Klaviyo's own team are very, very good at working together with you on implementing these things. I think given that it's a new offering that they have, they really want to help you implement these things. So working alongside their team, working alongside developers, and typically, even if you're an e-commerce manager at a brand, partnering with an agency that has the dev resource, I think is often needed. These projects can take a while. they require multiple different touch points from various project managers, various developers, and then various just because the nature of the data is that it's scattered, you really need to find every single point of where to get that data and push it. So your API endpoints and pushing it from there. Now, more detailed dev explanation, my developers probably will be able to give that better than myself.
Yeah, I don't think we need to go into the nitty-gritty of what developers do, and that will be far too complicated for me and for our listeners, I reckon. Now, if you're running an omni-channel business, you might have not only one platform for marketing purposes, so Klaviyo is one. Are there other platforms that you're using that you're integrating?
Yes, absolutely. We're big fans of Recharge, for subscriptions. Big fan of Bundler for bundling as well. And I'm sure some of the listeners now might have winced at the idea of subscriptions and bundling and custom bundling, right? Because it's a notoriously difficult tech challenge to implement subscriptions alongside custom bundles. Shopify launched their own bundling, but that's not a true custom bundling solution. So if you're looking for a true custom bundling solution where people can pick and choose products from your available SKUs and add them in and then subscribe, it comes with a lot of technical challenges. So that being said, though, those are two apps that we love working with. Not necessarily the apps, but the platform and the systems themselves, right? When it comes to subscriptions and bundling, we really see a lot of use cases there with people using them, right? And for us, being able to integrate them into Klaviyo directly, so being able to get that data of who's subscribed, who's not subscribed, and kind of push that data segment further and then do some really great AOV increases, LTV increases through automation and campaigns. Other than that, I think loyalty programs are always a great to work with, especially with the integrations with Klaviyo. You can really start to do amazing things, create specific flows for people who are in your loyalty program, and based on their tiers, you can start to reward them specifically and do some real cool things. So loyalty, bundling, subscriptions, we love working with all of those. I think that's really where a lot of the value is also added into your Klaviyo ecosystem and into your online ecosystem as well. Further to that point, I don't think it's purely online. You can go take it a step further and go and start to look at how does this interact with your retail stores, right? If you've got retail stores and if you've got an omni-channel loyalty program, which again is a technical challenge in and of itself, but if it's done right, obviously people are earning points when they're at your retail stores, they're earning points when they're shopping online with you, and this all housed in the customer account. You can start to utilize this information and push it through Klaviyo with the campaigns and specific segments. So we are big fans of making sure everything is omni-channel when possible, because that's when I think a lot of these retailers are really getting that next step. And a lot of the time, they're not taking that next step because of the technical challenges that come with it, because of the cumbersome projects that might take 6, 8, 12 months to implement. But what we've seen is, especially if you're a retailer that has a retail presence and an online store, and you're turning over probably around over 5 million a year, it will add a lot of benefits, a lot of improvements to your end systems. Now, if you're a smaller retailer than that, probably not worth taking on these big projects. I think there's a lot of other things, a lot of lower hanging fruit that you can take on that makes better sense.
Yeah, you already answered a couple of questions that I had. So obviously the timeline, you said it can be 3 months, 6 months, 12 months, depending on the complexity of the project. Still, I have the answer is like, what's the approach in looking into this? So basically, what's the customer journey, your customer working with you, to get this all set up? Where do you start there?
Absolutely. It all starts with a very intricate scoping process, right? The customer, the client won't know what they're getting into. We will not know what we're getting into unless there's a very good scoping process. And I think I can speak on behalf of everyone who has led projects with numerous stakeholders, where if you don't scope it well, you're just setting yourself up for failure. There'll be scope creep, there'll be budgets that blow out, there'll a whole set of nasties. So massive scoping process, typically, again, depending on the complexities, can take months, can take up to 2 months, let's say. I think the longest we've had was about 2.5 months. So big scoping, bringing on all the different stakeholders who will be working on this, bringing on internal dev teams from the client side, bringing on internal project managers, assigning someone to lead this from the client side, and also bringing in our team and really understanding what are all their systems, where is this data housed, how can we actually use it, if at all, because sometimes systems might be closed off, so we can't actually access it with API endpoints. So do we look at a pre-project of actually migrating that data first? Are they maybe using legacy systems that have to be updated first? Are they on let's say a Shopify, but realistically they should be on a Shopify Plus, because that's going to actually save them money down the track with everything else that we're adding on top. So it's really understanding their stack. After that, we start to kind of create a project timeline and take it step by step. Initially, it's understanding the data, looking into it, piping it into our internal systems, and then just going from there. There really is a long process, and it's different for every client depending on what their stacks are. Sometimes it's super easy to work with, sometimes it's challenging to work with, and then we've never done it, and then we have to go and figure it out. So, but I love that. I love that. There's every client, every project is different, right? And you're never doing the same thing twice, and then seeing the end result always makes it worth it.
Yeah, I think if you're working in project management, you need to be up for a challenge because that's part of your daily job. I want to talk a little bit about or touch on data breaches, privacy concerns. Obviously, that's in everyone's mind now. If you're working with complex systems and different systems connecting with each other, how do you ensure that the privacy and the security of the app that the data is connected with? How does that work?
For sure. So obviously there's different requirements based on where you are geographically as well. Europe, GDPR, New Zealand, Australia, US, Canada, everyone has their own set of rules or regulations. So how we typically tackle it is we understand where that data is first housed in, and then we take the appropriate measures based on that. Typically, a lot of the data sits with those third parties anyway. Once we pipe it over into Klaviyo CDP, for example, it sits with Klaviyo, so they ensure that on behalf of the client. During the transition period, during the time when we have access to the data, obviously we have internal measures to protect that data, making sure that there are no leaks and the likes. So there's a very good point that you actually touched on there. But that's part of our initial clauses, our initial agreements, that all of that is kind of checked off, and all of that is in safe hands.
Okay, no, makes perfect sense. Now, you already talked a little bit about the size of a project. Who's your perfect customers? Are there specific industries or niches that you work with? You gave the example, which I found very surprising, that you can do this in this kind of industry. But are you seeing more results or better results in specific industries than others?
Good question. I think typically in e-commerce, when we're talking about an e-commerce client, any sort of high AOV products perform well. Any sort of repeatability performs well. For example, now, does this mean that if you're selling furniture, it won't work as well for you? Probably. But does it mean it won't work for you at all? Probably not. You will still get incremental improvements, but your best bet is when you're selling, let's say, something that people can come back and buy again, where you want to stay top of mind. Whereas, let's say, furniture, I might buy it once and I might maybe have to buy it again in 5 years' time, right? So, but that, you don't really need to have as many touch points. You don't have to segment as much and go down that path. To give you an example, one of our clients, they actually market themselves as Patagonia, but for dogs, right? So they sell winter coats and they sell winter coats, and they sell garments for dogs, high performance, right? For people who like to go on hikes with their dogs in cold environments, up the mountains. And for them, they actually hand make each one of these garments for each specific breed, right? Because no breed is going to be the same. Even a Labrador, Idle Labrador, is not the same shape and size as a golden retriever, although they're very, very close. So that's a great use case there, where for us, it made complete sense to go and segment for them, right? We segmented based on each individual breed of people who have purchased products for a specific breed, piping through preference data, right? So just asking your customers, or at a post-purchase level, or at a welcome series, welcome flow level, hey, give us more information about your dog so we can serve you better, right? We got quite a high success rate with that. I think often people love to tell you about, especially in this industry, with pets, like people love talking about their pets. So I think there was about a 57% opt-in rate in terms of giving that data, right? So more than half the people were telling us what breed dog they had. Great first-party data. We can use that to create those segments. And now we can email customers specifically for that breed of dog they have, and promotions and offers that are only specific to those breeds of dogs. And again, this is something they'd probably buy every other season, but also you might buy a coat this season, but a raincoat for the autumn season, and sun protection, I think sun protection coat. I don't know what exactly the product was for summer season, right? So there's constantly things that you can buy, and for that's a great use case where this advanced segmentation and analyzing that data makes sense.
Yeah, that's an awesome example. I'm a dog person. I had a Rhodesian Ridgeback, and I spent far too much money on him. It was well spent, but I can relate to that. And it shows you the power of data, because I mean, everyone has a different dog size, different style, whatsoever. And now you can really start segmenting it down to the point to touch on the right person with the right product, and that obviously will increase your margins. Let me ask you, you have the finger on the pulse of e-commerce. Do you see any kind of emerging trends right now in the online retail space beside of AI?
AI is the talk of the town right now. I think a lot of people are talking and looking at how they're using AI. Now, apart from that, is a good question. I think we're seeing a lot of marketplaces being used a lot more. Obviously, globally, you're getting Amazon is always a dominant player. So Amazon, I think, is doubling down on their platform and how people are advertising on that. We're seeing that with our US clients. A lot of the time, it's very funny seeing the split depending on where you are in the world, right? In New Zealand, we don't even have Amazon, for example. So in New Zealand, a lot of brands are pushing their own DTC channels through Shopify. Whereas if you're in the US and you're making any sort of sizable revenue, you are in Amazon. There really is no way around it, right? And then we're starting to see actually other marketplaces emerge with more affordable, I guess, if you want to be nicer and kinder, but the emergence of Temu, Shein, all these marketplaces that bring in a lot of these lower cost items to kind of the masses. And so you're starting to see how people are actually interacting with that. I remember seeing a great article actually talking about the different marketplaces and how everyone's trying to compete and place themselves there. So I think marketplaces are going to be an interesting play, and how people utilize it. TikTok Shop, probably is actually old news by now, but it's still relatively new, with a lot of people running ads on TikTok Shop, and TikTok itself pushing TikTok Shop. So a lot of advertisers are getting their best ROASs on TikTok Shop right now. So if you're not really on TikTok Shop, definitely look into it. Similarly to when Instagram Reels first came out, you had some great metrics there because Instagram Meta itself were pushing it. So right now that seems to be sitting with TikTok Shop. We're probably on the tail end of it because a lot of people are starting to use it and see great success. So if you're not on it, definitely check it out. That's probably an immediate thing people can utilize, but really everything else I'm seeing is in AI. A lot of people are utilizing AI for content, for campaign structure planning. And I mean, I'm sure you've had guests that have talked about this as well. So it's really interesting to see how that landscape is changing and how us as solution providers have to adapt to this.
Yeah, AI definitely already part of the day-to-day business of marketers, of store managers. But good point there. Have an eye on marketplaces. I think there will be, specifically coming in the next couple of months, a lot of movement in there. Before we come to the end of our coffee break today, is there anything that you want to share with our listeners that we haven't covered yet?
I think we covered everything, to be honest. What I really wanted to talk about here was the importance of not just Klaviyo. I know we're talking about Klaviyo in this instance, but really utilizing your data. I don't think I've seen any client from any shape of size, from new startups to enterprise clients that have just done an amazing job on data, that have all their bases covered, right? And obviously, it's easier said than done as an external party looking at it and going, well, you're not doing this and this, because of the challenges and the complexities of introducing these systems. But don't wait, because when you actually start to utilize this data and you actually start to manipulate it and provide your customers a better solution and a better service, the results really speak for themselves, right? Margins are going up massively. And I think especially given in the climate we're in now, the shift is away from revenue at all costs, right? The shift now is towards profitability. So how do you ensure profitability? Your meta ads are not performing as well, they have been on a decline. TikTok Shop, that's good, holding the torch there, so that's good. But content, now you've got the stream of content coming out that people are producing through UGC and AI. So how do you actually make sure that your margins stay and you're getting increased competition, macro conditions with interest rates? And I think really where you can do that is through your data, especially if you're a larger brand. And by larger, you don't have to be $100 million brand, right? If you're that's typically what we've seen is if you're about 5 million or more per year, you can really unlock a lot of extra margin. So really my I guess closing remarks would be, don't hold off on making sure you're using your data correctly. I promise you it'll be worth it.
Yeah, I think it's also good to have a fresh set of eyes on your business. You might just get trapped in all the data that you have and just repeat what you have done a year ago. And that probably is not working anymore because it's always dynamic. It's moving very fast. And as you said, Facebook ads, it's old news. It's not really making any money. Some might, but it's tough.
Weird.
And looking into TikTok, definitely the right step to do. Excellent. Where can people find out more about you guys?
Yeah, absolutely. They can find more about us on atlasventures.co. They can find me on LinkedIn under Omer Hazer, Omer with an E. And we're always open to chats. Please reach out if you just want to discuss and give us a challenge. Tell us how complex and crazy your systems are, and we'd love to just have a chat. And if we can't help you, we might be able to refer you to someone who can. So and if we can, we'd love to just walk and understand what your systems are, what the complexities are lying, and what you can do to actually improve them. So find us, reach out to me. If you're in New Zealand by any chance, let me know, and then we'll go grab a coffee as well.
I will put the links in the show notes as always, Omer. Unfortunately, I'm not in New Zealand right now, but maybe I will pop in at some point. Thanks so much for giving us a really good overview of what's happening there and how you can increase your margins and how you can use data to just do a better job in your business. Thanks so much for your time today.
Thanks, Klaus.
Hey, Klaus here. Thank you for tuning in to another episode. Before we wrap things up, I've got a couple of important points to share. Firstly, if you have enjoyed today's episode and want to support the show, here's a simple way to do it. Help me out with that algorithm magic by liking, commenting, and subscribing on your favorite podcast app. And if you're feeling extra generous, leaving a rating would be great. Your support helps me bringing more impactful guests on the show, and it makes it easier for others to discover the podcast. Secondly, I want to talk about to all your business owners out there. Here's a question. Are you tired of juggling everything in your business while struggling with your marketing tasks? Fed up with hit and miss experiences of hiring freelancers or agencies that don't quite get your vision? But perhaps you're not ready to commit to a full-time in-house marketer just yet. Well, I've got a solution for you. Introducing our fractional marketing team. My team and I provide top-notch experienced marketing professionals to become an extension of your business. Not only will they save you up to 50% on cost compared to traditional hires, but they also take care of all this time-consuming, repetitive and complex marketing tasks that have been holding you back. And this way you can concentrate on what truly matters, the core of your business. To learn more about how we can help you to scale up your online sales with a fractional team member, head over to our website, smart-ecommerce-marketing.com, or reach out to me directly and I'll get you the details. You will find the links in the show notes. Thanks for being a part of our podcast community, and remember, your support means the world to me. Until next time, see you then.